A grade 8 class returns to school in Amherstburg today after a fellow student tested positive for COVID-19 weeks ago. We hear from the family tonight. Tomorrow is the first day that people can vote in the Ward 7 by-election, an election nearly a year in the making. What you need to know before you cast your ballot. Gray, foggy, and a little wet. This is the Monday that Colette Kennedy warned us about, starting off with what could be a bit of a rainy night tonight, 16 degrees outside right now. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. A huge jump in new COVID-19 cases today. Ontario at an all-time high of 700 cases. So far, no new restrictions for the province. Schools are still in session. 2 weeks ago, Windsor, Essex had its first student test positive. Today, that student returned to class. As the CBC's Katie Fraser reports, the family of the 13-year-old who tested positive is worried about the stigma that their daughter may face.
Jamie Smith only made it through one day of school at Stella Maris, Friday, September 11th. That weekend, she started having difficulty breathing, and after a hospital visit, Jamie's family found out she was positive for COVID-19.
It's concerning. We don't know how she got this.
Jamie's dad, James, says he and his wife were besides themselves and were even more confused when their tests, along with 9-year-old sister Jenna's, came back negative.
We started phoning and calling everybody that we knew that we were in contact with, even that late at night. By
Tuesday, the English Catholic Board confirmed they had had a case and, following public health guidelines, sent a class of roughly 20 kids home to self-isolate and monitor for symptoms. But their teacher wasn't required to. According to the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, teachers are more protected because of PPE and physical distancing.
There's very limited reason for us to think that just with all these measures in place, that the teacher is at risk of contracting it.
Today, Jamie went back to school along with her classmates, and although she's been symptom-free for the last few days, her parents still find it odd she doesn't have to get retested before going back to school. Dr. Ahmed says this is in line with the province's current health guidelines.
There is no requirement anywhere in this provincial testing guidelines at this time to do a negative, because what we are seeing is these viral shedding, it continues to happen for a much, much longer period of time, sometimes even up to 3 months.
Ahmed says by 8 to 10 days after symptoms occur, 99% of people are no longer infectious. But spreading the virus isn't James's only concern for both of his daughters.
I just want people to know that it's a real mystery of how this virus really is spread. There's too many unknowns.
James says the family has had some backlash from the community, and he's worried of how his daughters will be treated at school. It's something the board has thought of as well.
We have arranged for a child and youth worker, a psychologist, as well as our mental health consultant to be on site to address any concerns that staff or students may have.
Although help is in place, Jamie was very nervous ahead of her first day back, but was joined in school by nearly all of her classmates today, ready to get back to the books. Katie Fraser, CBC News, Windsor.
Here in Windsor, Essex, there were 5 new cases over the weekend, 3 more this morning, but the province's single-day record of COVID-19 infections is putting more pressure on the Ford government to take action. Our Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley, has more.
In case there was any doubt, Premier Doug Ford makes it official.
Ontario is now in the second wave of COVID-19.
You can see the evidence of the second wave in both the lengthy testing lineups and the climbing pandemic curve. Ontario's previous one-day peak was way back in April. After a summer lull, the case numbers started rising sharply this month until hitting today's record of 700.
700.
A number that provokes strong reactions.
That's a lot. That's too many. We seem to be going in the wrong direction here.
That's quite shocking.
Very scary that we're going to have to go to a total lockdown again. Nobody wants that.
So what should the government do?
I think they should be pulling back and we should be going back to phase 2.
They've got to do something. Otherwise Thanksgiving and Christmas and we're back in a lockdown.
Today's numbers, they're deeply concerning.
Despite that concern, the province announced no new prevention measures today and no clear answers on what would trigger a rollback to stage 2 of its reopening plan. That's what the province's hospital association wants to see in the GTA and Ottawa. The health minister isn't keen.
We don't want to turn back a stage unless we absolutely have to, but if we do have to, we will.
Was today's record just a blip? This expert says watch the numbers as the week unfolds.
But certainly rising numbers and numbers rising as quickly as they are is concerning for exponential spread, which means we've really lost control of it.
Right now, we're anticipating if it keeps going, we have to assume it could be a lot worse than the first wave.
Today's record comes as fresh modeling suggests that Ontario will surpass 1,000 new cases a day by mid-October. And in all but the best case scenario, hospitals will face having to cancel non-emergency surgeries to make room in the ICU. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Windsor City Council has extended the mask bylaw indefinitely. That move made by council after it was set to expire. Some delegates opposed the idea, but one councillor said that the council is following the health unit's lead.
City council or city government, they cannot interfere actually with the health unit mandate. The health unit, they are independent of any. So we can't tell them what to do. They can come in and they tell us what to do. And I wonder if those people have been lobbying the health unit instead of coming to us. We're in the same boat as we are.
Now, dozens gathered outside City Hall, holding signs and expressing their frustrations and concerns. The bylaw is going to remain in place until, quote, the threat of COVID-19 subsides and council chooses to revoke it. Now, the Diversity Committee at City Hall will review the city's hiring practices. That committee believes that there may be barriers that prevent minorities from getting jobs, and the chair wants to see better representation of the community.
We're the last to hear anything when anything happens, and I think that's ludicrous. But like I said, our whole goal is to see how we can work together with the city to see how we can improve the lives of the members of the racial minorities in the city.
A lack of masks, little physical distancing, and a group of people dancing in the streets. One business owner says he's concerned about what he saw over the weekend in downtown Windsor at another establishment. They say that this type of thing could set everyone back. The CBC's Jason Vio has more.
At 11:39 Friday night, a crowd of people could be seen dancing at the outdoor patio of House of India in downtown Windsor. It doesn't appear anyone is wearing a mask, and physical distancing rules aren't being followed.
The fear is if people don't behave and don't keep their patrons behaved, that the city or the provincial government will reverse it and all of us will be punished, not just one venue, but all of us.
CBC News spoke with the owner of the House of India who wouldn't agree to an on-camera interview. He says, though, he was busy in the kitchen when some of his customers began dancing to music his hired DJ was playing. That's when he says people from the streets joined in, and when he found out, he says he stopped the music and shut it down. Still, Griffith wants to see better enforcement.
Why weren't they fined? Why weren't every person on that patio fined? We have to fill out contact sheets so they know who they were. So they do need to go and take care of that and show that this is not going to be accepted.
To my knowledge, that we haven't had any fines or anything further regarding these, non-compliance. Like what Toronto has experienced, that hasn't happened here.
The Downtown Windsor Business Improvement Association says rules and regulations change rapidly, and it's a learning curve for every business.
We've been doing our best to educate them. We do what we can, but we do have to rely on the businesses to take their own responsibility for situations that they find themselves in certain circumstances.
But Griffith doesn't want a few incidents like this to cause those stricter regulations to come back, hurting already struggling businesses.
It's so scary that they're going to close us again. The fear is out there right now in the community that we're going to go backwards. We're going into winter. It is very frightening, and that's something none of us want to see because we can't survive it again.
Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Well, that by-election for the council seat in Ward 7 is coming up quickly. Early voting starts tomorrow. It's been nearly a year since people have had someone sitting in council chambers on their behalf. So we wanted to look at what candidates thought about one of the city's biggest issues, affordable housing. Jacob Barker, live tonight. Jacob, you were able to speak with all 12 candidates. What are some of their plans?
Well, most of the candidates I spoke with say this issue is a priority. Right now, there are over 6,000 people on the list for affordable housing units in Windsor. Candidates had different thoughts on what they think will work.
At the end of the day, housing is a human right. There's no question about that, and there's no argument about that. It helps resolve issues with mental health. and addiction, child poverty, which Windsor has one of the highest levels of child poverty in all of Canada.
It's a huge social issue. And I think it's one that ties into all the other issues that we're experiencing with opioid crisis, mental health issues, wellness, and just basic shelter needs of people.
New developments are happening and are being proposed in Windsor. On the east end, the Meadowbrook development will create 145 new units, but of those, more than 40 are considered affordable. And there was talk recently of several new towers going in this area right here, even one on the site of where the CBC building now stands.
Construction planning is in place, and my view about that is that it needs to be accelerated. 10 years is a long time to wait.
If I'm elected, that's going to be one of my priorities, to jumpstart projects like Meadowbrook, see if there's a way to get them happening quicker, join other councillors to work as they all are.
I think we need to work a little closer with developers in convincing them to dedicate some of their developments and some of their projects to affordable housing.
Well, many were supportive of the steps and direction the city has taken with its housing and homelessness plan. They did have some ideas of their own.
We can do some land buybacks and offer like council housing. That was a common thing in England when I studied there. Just having city councils run some housing instead of selling it to developers that then make luxury condos.
First, it will be to propose that they implement the new zoning laws that favor the development of apartment. That is number one. And the second thing will be to review the zoning tools like cap on building heights, minimum lot size, and the parking requirement.
What we could do is we could take vacant properties that the city owns, or we could purchase, such as motels, and we could repurpose these properties into affordable housing for individuals.
So that idea of repurposing existing infrastructure is something that was brought up by the federal government in the recent throne speech. And if there was one common thread in speaking with the different candidates, it was that idea of working together with the federal and provincial governments on coming up with solutions.
Now, Barker, when you were putting this story together, there was a couple more ideas too. One that involved advocating for a new trailer park in Windsor.
Yeah, so some said that they would push more in the direction that the city has been moving on affordable housing. Others had different plans. That idea to build a trailer park on land would be near the WFCU Center.
It wouldn't take long to put the services in on that property and start bringing in the mobile homes.
Others spoke about an idea the city has already embarked upon. That's to increase the supply with smaller units.
Anyone who has a home, they allow another setup in the backyard, and basically they've connected, but all the neighbors have to be in agreement with it, right? I'm not sure that's going to fly in Ward 7, but it's just something that's obviously on the radar.
My idea is if any builder or developer want to move into this direction, make a smaller unit, and we need to cut down the development charges for that unit.
And one candidate I spoke to chose not to focus on affordable housing units at all. He says all of the focus needs to be on those trying to purchase a home.
We have to be able to attract private industry here, private industry that's going to pay at least decently well, of course. So members of my generation and next can afford to buy homes here instead of having to move away to a place where they can get a good job so they could buy a home there. It doesn't start or end with any type of socialized housing program, because that always fails.
So 12 candidates, all with different approaches to the issue. One thing is clear, though, that this is something that is playing on their minds as they approach the election. Voting for that starts tomorrow for the open ward seat. Chris?
Thanks, this is Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker live with us tonight. Now, we have more information on our website about their platforms. You can go to cbc.ca/Windsor. At the core, voting will be like any other year, but there's some parts of the process put in place as pandemic precautions. The CBC's Sanjay Maru on the ins and outs of casting your ballot.
Voting day is October 5th, but if you're looking to cast your ballot beforehand, you'll have 4 opportunities to do so. All votes will be collected at the WFCU Center. You'll want to bring a piece of ID to verify your address, and this, your voter notification card, which eligible voters should have received in their mailboxes by Monday. If you don't have one, but think you should, call 311.
When they get to the doors, they will be asked a set of health screening questions. Are you experiencing any symptoms of COVID-19? Fever, cough, shortness of breath, that type of thing. Have you been in contact with anybody who has tested positive for COVID-19 or is experiencing any of the symptoms? And then the third question is, have you traveled outside of the country for non-essential purposes? Obviously, we recognize we have our cross-border workers and they have that exemption, so we would welcome them into the pool.
And don't forget, if you're an eligible voter but you're stuck at work, your boss is supposed to give you time to leave so you can go vote without a dock in pay. But what if you're an eligible voter needing to isolate because you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or awaiting test results? The city says you should submit your ballot through proxy voting or use curbside ballot boxes at the WFCU Center. The city says the previous by-election here in Ward 7 resulted in a 22% turnout rate. COVID-19 expected to reduce that, but officials with the city say other regions across Ontario that have held recent by-elections of their own during this pandemic have seen a slight uptick in turnout. The city of Windsor hoping that happens here in Ward 7 as their message remains clear. If you can go out and vote safely, do it. Sanjay Maru, CBC News, Windsor.
Tecumseh firefighters are mourning the loss of one of their own. 38-year-old volunteer firefighter Michael Abaldo was killed Friday when the motorcycle that he was riding collided with a vehicle on Highway 3. The vehicle was exiting one of the cemeteries. OPP are still investigating the crash. They're looking for witnesses. The driver of the other vehicle was treated for minor injuries. Abaldo joined Tecumseh Fire and Rescue in 2015. His funeral will be held tomorrow. Ford workers have ratified their deal with the company, agreeing to the 3-year contract announced last week. Windsor Local 200 production workers voted 87% in favor. Skilled trades voted 86% in favor of the deal. Unifor releasing more information on what exactly is inside of that deal as well. Ford is investing $148 million for the Windsor Annex to bring a 6X engine to the plant. The addition of this engine will bring a third shift to the assembly in the future. A recommitment from Ford that the Windsor Engine Plant Annex will continue to produce the nano-cylinder head for the life of the agreement. The company has also agreed to discuss alternatives to outsourcing as Ford approached the union to eliminate the transportation department during this round of bargaining. Negotiations with Fiat Chrysler begin later this week. Another look outside here as we await what was promised, that kind of soggy week with wet weather and gray clouds and, well, the opposite of what we had last week. Colette Kennedy joins us with the full forecast next. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, I took a drive around the county this weekend. You can see the leaves changing colors. It looks absolutely beautiful out there, but there's that little bit of rain that you said was going to hit, and we're certainly past that summer mark, I think.
Yeah, we're really in today kind of feeling it with the rain and then the temperatures kind of crashing too. I did the same thing, did a little drive and took in some of the colors. So that was a nice thing to do. One thing that we can do in this time of the pandemic. I wanted to show you this picture here in terms of the map with the temperature progression, just so you get an idea of all these areas where the contour and the colors are in green, showing the cooler air behind the front where the system is kind of sitting over the upper Great Lakes. And yes, Windsor into this with the temperature currently at 14 after an unofficial high today of 19, and Cleveland are kind of in the transition where temperatures are coming down. And then look at Erie at 27, Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo at 26, even over towards Toronto still sitting in the mid-20s. So a whole different scenario in other parts of even eastern Ontario. We're still holding on to the warmer side of the system, but yeah, we're making that transition over. So Chatham, Kent at 14, and same thing in Leamington right now, and Sarnia at 13 as this front is working its way through. And we'll continue to see some gusty winds as we head towards the midnight hour. They'll ease a little bit, and then they're going to pick up again towards tomorrow afternoon. And associated with this as well, all along this frontal boundary as we're getting into some of the heavier rains. A little bit of lightning activity, yes, a potential in here, but mostly what we've just been seeing are some of the downpours. So all along the front here, the area of low pressure kind of centered back there towards the upper Great Lakes. And there you can see it's going to at least move pretty quickly now as we continue through the overnight hours, and then we'll be drying out towards tomorrow morning. Now, what we should find is that we get some clearing in the morning, so we do have some sunshine to start the day off, and then likely it's going to fill in as we go towards the afternoon hours on Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday. We get into a chance of seeing more showery activity, into Tuesday, and that when what we find, and Wednesday, and what we find is those winds picking up. 11 overnight tonight. This is kind of a gradual change in our temperatures. Towards the end of the week, what's going to be happening is that we're going to see them really crashing down. So it's almost two sort of systems that come through. So one is a cool front, and the next one's more of a cold front, Chris, that's going to bring our temperatures down further.
All right, we'll
I
keep an eye
forgot
on
what
that.
day it was. I'm sorry.
Hey.
I admit I forgot for a moment what day it was.
It's difficult. Well, you've been talking about sun for so long. This whole precipitation thing is like, no, let's get that by.
Yep. There we go.
Thanks for this.
Pandemic
Tuesday, tomorrow.
Monday.
We'll see you. Yes, yes. Oh, I love it. Thanks for this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, we've heard a lot about how doctors have gone above and beyond during this pandemic. After the break, we're going to show you one that takes it to a whole nother level. Fires fanned by high winds have forced the evacuation of a hospital, consumed homes, and threatened California's Napa Valley, as well as points further north. Now, fire crews have been battling those flames north of San Francisco since yesterday. At least 5,000 people were told to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Some who could not flee were lucky enough to be rescued, including that small kitten that you're looking at right there. Now, this year's California wildfires have killed 26 people, charred more than 3.7 million acres. House calls from doctors are rare, but not completely unheard of. Enough, though, in the rugged far northwestern reaches of China that it takes a more intrepid sort of physician.
The biggest challenge is the commute. In the summer it's still okay, but in the winter it's especially difficult. I've fallen several times and nearly died. 3 of my horses had died from falling.
Dr. Jumate has been bringing medicines and treatment to some of the most remote places in the region for nearly 3 decades. A road's now being built there, but the doctor says some of his nomadic patients will remain well off of what you're looking at, the beaten path. He worries about what will happen when he retires. Younger medics have joined his team, but they don't stay. He says his dream is to have local children grow up to become doctors. Not 1, but 2 world land speed records smashed this weekend at a vacant airfield in northeast England. Both involved vehicles that were a bit unorthodox. Now, the first winner, Jason Liversridge, cranked his custom-made electric wheelchair up to nearly 108 kilometers an hour. Liveridge, who has ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, doesn't routinely drive that fast. Now, in the second record setter, Andy Jennings hit over 69 kilometers per hour in his motorized recycling wheelie bin. He created the machine using a motorbike engine and parts of a mobility scooter. No beer involved, though contenders were vying for recognition as the Guinness World Record holders. It's 6:29 p.m. and that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Power and Politics is up next. We're going to join that already in progress. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family have yourselves a wonderful night tonight.